It's time to duel.
In case you haven't noticed, the light novel takeover is sweeping over Japan. Each season and each year, more and more anime and manga are created based off of popular light novels. This winter 2021 anime season alone has 12 titles originally based on light novels. That time I got reincarnated as a slime, Log Horizon, Mushoku Tensei, and ReZero are 4 of the 12. That said, like all things, there are some common trends when it comes to light novels. Let's face it, if something gets popular, anyone and everyone wants to replicate that success and create their own version. Just look at mobile games and how every app at one point had a misleading ad with those stick-pulling puzzles. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Gardenscapes. Awful copycat mobile games aside, light novels try to do the same thing and capitalize on popular trends, and I decided to cover that as a topic for this week's episode of the Axel Ablaze Productions podcast. Without further ado, my name is Axel Ablaze, and today we're talking about the 2 current biggest trends in light novels. Now, before we get too far into things, I want to note that isekais are a genre. Light novels definitely popularize the genre, and both of the trends we'll be talking about have a huge number of isekai stories, but I wanted to make that distinction. Digimon, Inuyasha, and Spirited Away are all examples of isekai before the term got popularized. Not to mention we have our own Western isekais like The Wizard of Oz, Peter Pan, and Alice in Wonderland. Weird to think of them that way, but it's true. That distinction out of the way, let's get into the trends themselves. If we're talking the biggest trend in light novels, then it has to be, and I'm paraphrasing here, a seemingly weak protagonist is actually incredibly overpowered. This comes in many shapes and forms, whether that's the main character having an underestimated item, skill, and/or they're transformed into a seemingly weak creature. More often than not, there are preconceived notions by the people and/or societies as a whole in these series. Compared to the other trend that we'll be talking about, this one has a lot of isekai series, but not all of them are. Though, that said, the non-isekai light novels in this trend are still fantasy or sci-fi based. For this winter anime season in particular, the ones that fit this trend are That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, So I'm a Spider, So What, and to an extent, Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation. Slime and Spider are clear examples of the creature transformation side of the trend. Slimes are universally seen as one of the weakest, if not the weakest creature in anime, manga, video games, etc. So of course it's going to be hilarious and interesting if the slime ends up being more powerful than anyone and anything else. On the flip side, with So I'm a Spider, So What, we've got an entire classroom of people getting isekai'd into another world. Our main character gets turned into a newly hatched spider while the vast majority of her classmates, at least the ones we've seen so far, have turned into up-and-coming heroes, ranking highly in non-monster society. 2 episodes in, and we've already seen our main character literally evolving, so it's only a matter of time before she becomes a lot stronger. I will admit that I am an anime-only fan of these 2 series so far, but I will be reading their manga and light novels eventually. I know that not everything gets shown in translation from a light novel to anime or manga. Looking at you, Overlord! So I want to see for myself what the comparisons are, but I wanted to be upfront about me not reading the light novels for these series at this time. Mushoku Tensei, on the other hand, represents another, let's say, interesting side of the weak/not weak main character trend. Some isekai series feature main characters dying and being completely reborn in another world as a baby. More often than not, we get to see them briefly as children, if anything, but then jump ahead to when they're teenagers or adults to get over that awkward adult mind in a child body phase, which, let's be honest, is very awkward in the first 2 episodes of Mushoku Tensei. The misconception of weakness for these stories stems from the fact that this child has all of this crazy power and or untapped potential. Once they're older, they're recognized for that strength that they have, but it's that childhood period where they're underestimated. Mushoku Tensei is one of these series. I'm currently anime only for this one as well, so I don't know how long we'll be seeing him as a child, possibly all the way through the first course of this split course season. But the series that bug me a bit are the ones that feature their main characters doing things when they're younger than 5. Take, for example, Reincarnated as an Aristocrat with an Appraisal Skill. It's a light novel series that had a manga adaptation starting through Manga Pocket last year, and it's a series that I enjoy. As I mentioned in my top 20 new manga from 2020 video, the main character was an office worker that just randomly dies out of nowhere. No Truck-kun, no random meteor, just falls over and dies. He is reincarnated in another world as the son of a noble and has a unique appraisal skill that allows him to see the stats and abilities of anyone he looks at. You want to know where the story starts in chapter 1? When he's 3 years old! Dude wasted no time getting busy once his mouth and legs started working. I'll be honest here, I have no idea what Japan's concept of time and age is, but 3? Really? I get that this is a person that has all of their knowledge and mental capacities from their previous life. Happens all the time in isekais, but hearing that the main character is 3 just takes me out of the experience there. I do want to clarify though that I really enjoy Reincarnated as an Aristocrat, and he doesn't stay as a 3-year-old forever. He does grow up a bit as the story progresses within the 20 chapters that we've got translated so far. But yeah, the 3-year-old part just bugged me. It was in my top 20 for a reason. It is very enjoyable, and I do love it, and I do recommend it. But that age thing really is my only issue that I have with it. I'm hoping that we won't have to see the main character in Mushoku Tensei stay as a child for too long in comparison, but yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. Again, I don't read the light novel. I don't know. I know he gets older at some point. I just don't know how long we'll be seeing him as a child in the anime. Now, I do realize in a way that this might make me sound like a hypocrite because one of my favorite series from the past 2 years was Ascendance of a Bookworm, and both of the first 2 seasons cover the main character when she's really young. But even she's not a 3-year-old in that series. It's more slice of life anyway, but I digress. So, other than the seemingly weak character in this trend, there's also the seemingly weak item or skill side of things. The big example here is obviously the Rising of the Shield Hero. The main character, Naofumi, is isekai'd over to another world, not by dying but via magical teleportation, and gets assigned a magical shield compared to the other 3 new heroes that have a sword, spear, and bow. Naofumi gets tricked, looked down upon, and has his life threatened several times by the kingdom, its people, and even the other 3 heroes. Despite this, he works hard and finds out that the shield has a lot more powers and secrets than the others would have guessed. Shield Hero was big when it came out, and a lot of other similar series, whether they were adapted into anime or manga, came out afterwards. One sub-trend in particular with that was, and I'm once again paraphrasing here, ex-member of the hero party gets kicked out despite being stronger than everyone else in the party. Just to name a few lengthily titled examples, we've got the Labyrinth Raids of the Ultimate Tank. The tank possessing a rare 9,999 endurance skill was expelled from the hero party. Did you know that a playboy can change his job to a sage? The level 99 jester expelled from the hero's party will become a great sage. And my cheat skill Resurrection revived me, and I ended up resurrecting the Ancient Demon Lord's army, the strongest healer that won't let anyone die. Those are a mouthful, huh? Just a complete synopsis of the story right there in the title. And for those wondering, the Japanese titles of these light novels turned manga are just as long. That Cheat Skill Resurrections manga Japanese title is Cheat Skill Shisha Sosei ga Kakuse Shite Inishie no Maogun wo Fukatsu Sasete Shimai Mashita Dare mo Shinasenai Saikyo Hero. Still long. And it took me like 5 times to try and say that right, and even then I'm very certain that I did not say it all correctly, but I digress. But that said, the base plot for each of these is the same. Our main character is part of the famed hero party. Despite their active role in the party, one or more of the other heroes, though usually initiated by the leader, cast out the main character and or attempt to kill them. The main character then goes off and forms his own party where everyone else realizes that the person they kicked out was actually the strongest of their party thanks to a skill and or set of skills and abilities that they had. Of course, the weak/not weak main character trend also features a lot of swordsmen, magic, and a combination of the two. That's par for the course. A lot of the video game leaning or inspired series also incorporate skills and or skill trees too. One light novel that I thought had a somewhat unique twist on the isekai side of things is the reincarnated inferior magic swordsman used the skill board to become the most powerful swordsman. In this series, our main character randomly falls into a dimensional fissure and meets a god. This god sends him to another world with a skill board and 1,000 points to use on it. Long story short, the main character uses the skill board to become incredibly overpowered. The twist is that people getting isekai'd into this world isn't that rare of an occurrence. But that said, these people in particular are referred to as inferiors because they can't make it past level 1 and usually end up dying. Our main character appears to be the one exception to the rule, and that has to do with how he uses his skill board. Honestly, could you imagine being transported to or reincarnated in a fantasy world just to be super weak and unable to do anything? If you die because of Chuck-kun, that's already a bad dice roll, but getting reincarnated in a world like this without the main character's exploit would be an absolute crit fail of a roll. Just awful. Compared to the other trend I'll be talking about, the weak/not weak main character trend is definitely the dominant force for light novels, at least from what I've seen. And time again, we see these light novels getting adapted into anime and manga. You won't see this trend go away anytime soon, and I think that's fine, as long as we can still get some nice twists along the way, but yes, the cookie cutter stuff will continue too. That's just the way it is. Our second trend isn't necessarily one with the same staying power as the first, mainly because this is more specific. It's seen a boom much more recently, and I do mean boom, after researching for my top 20 new manga from 2020 video. And that current trend is the Otome game isekai trend. It's no secret that one of my favorite anime from last year was My Next Life as a Villainess, All Routes Lead to Doom. Our main character was reincarnated into her favorite Otome game, but as the villainess Katarina Kleiss. The unfortunate thing about this is that depending on what love route the main character would attempt, the vast majority of the endings involved Katarina being killed or at least exiled at best. So what does our main character do? She does everything in her power to set herself up for the best possible life in exile, not realizing that her actions were actually making her friends, family, and the love route boys fall in love with her. It became the most wholesome reverse harem ever, and I loved it. Super excited for season 2, by the way. Now you may be wondering, but Axel, that's just one light novel turned anime, right? You mentioned a boom. Where's the boom? If you type in Akuyaku, which is Japanese for villain, into a manga reading and or listing site, you will see lots of results, because the villainous side of the Otome game isekai trend in particular is really popping off right now. Reincarnating into the villainess that falls in love with the main character, reincarnating as the main character but falling in love with the villainess, reincarnating as the villainess but falling in love with an NPC with no relevance to the plot of the original game, reincarnating as the villainess and canceling your engagement so you can live a carefree and lazy life, etc, etc, etc. And that's just talking about the reincarnation side of things. That's not even counting the variations on the people being reincarnated or isekai'd in the first place. But we'll get into that a little bit later. When I was researching for my top 20 new manga of 2020 video, I cross-referenced about 4 to 6 different sites to find out what manga magazines and services published new manga titles in 2020. Not counting series that were introduced within the year and canceled before its end, there were somewhere between 300 and 400 new manga titles that started last year alone. And even then, my counting might be off. Out of all of these magazines and services, there was one in particular that stood out to me, and that was B's Log Comic, which publishes semi-monthly. You want to know how many Otome game, light novel, manga adaptations they had last year? 4! We've got I Won't Become a Villainess, I'm just a quote-unquote normal duke's daughter. Villainous level 99, I may be the hidden boss, but I'm not the demon lord. The small village of the young lady without blessing, and I'll become a villainess that will go down in history. The more of a villainess I become, the more the prince will dote on me. And that's just the stuff from last year. They already have more manga adaptations coming out this year, and there are several that came out before 2022. And that's just from B's Log Comic. That's not even including other magazines or manga services. The villainous side of the Otome game isekai trend is so popular that the manga creator for Zoid's Lost Century decided to make a manga about it. Specifically about a middle-aged government worker and father reincarnating into the villainess of an Otome game his daughter plays. Now, it's important to note here that this was a webcomic before becoming a serialized manga in Young King Hours GH Monthly. This was at no point a light novel, but it goes to show just how much this light novel trend has impacted the anime and manga scene for the mangaka of Zoids to want to create a manga in the same vein. And for the record, I love the manga. The Old Man Reincarnated as a Villainess was my number 9 pick in my top 20 new manga from 2020 video. If you haven't checked this manga out yet, you definitely need to do yourself a favor and do so. It's wholesome, it's funny, it's great. For anyone that is a fan of otaku culture, it's great, has a lot of references. I love it. Now, like I said before, I don't know that this trend is going to have the same staying power as the first trend. Otome games are popular for sure, but who knows how long we'll see the Otome game isekai trend stay in the limelight for light novels, especially this super strong villainous focus we've got going on right now. But I'm enjoying it. I'll admit that I'm a sucker for stuff like this. It shouldn't be a surprise for any of you that have seen or listened to any of my previous videos. As much as I love my action, drama, and intrigue, I'm also a fan of rom-com and feel-good content. Villainous Otome game isekais in particular fill that need for me. Now, while I haven't read a whole lot of light novels yet, the constant stream of adaptations in anime and manga form has made me more interested than ever to start reading them, whether they're part of these big 2 trends that I mentioned or not. And I'm talking both new and old light novels. In particular, for researching this video, I found that one of the oldest light novels turned into anime was actually Dirty Pair. I had no idea that it originated from light novels, and from 1980 at that. That is absolutely crazy. Now, with that being said, that does wrap things up for today's podcast episode. But before we close things out, I want to hear from you guys as always. What do you think of these 2 big trends in light novels? Do you agree that they're as big as I think they are, or do you think there's a bigger trend or trends out there? Do you have a particular favorite light novel from either of these 2 trends or both? Do you have a favorite light novel series that doesn't belong to either of these trends? I want to hear what you guys are thinking down in the comments section. Now, for those that have stuck along with me until this point in the episode, thank you for listening. If you like this video and want to see more like it, hit that like button. If you're new here and not subscribed already, hit that subscribe button. And if you are already subscribed, then thank you for your continued support of this channel, because it means a lot to me. Thank you for being here. And until next time, my name is Axel Blaze. And could you imagine if I got reincarnated as an actual dolphin man in another world? Nah, my luck would have me reincarnated as a villainess in an Otome game, clearly. Bye-bye, everybody.